I've grown up with a fascination of religions of all sorts, and when I see a movie that has a religious theme, I'm always really triggered by that and wondering about that, and often read more about it or research it. And this was an opportunity to take a lot of different perspectives of possession and explore it through a variety of characters and their perspective of religion. So as you can imagine, being a steward of this title, people pick up the phone. And so my research began as curiosity, naive curiosity, wondering various religious perspectives on possession and various rituals and ceremonies that paralleled the demonic universe that we were exploring. And then it was a chance to talk to academics and priests of all sorts and be recommended books to read. When I met Ellen Burstyn for the first time, she had an amazing journey for the last 50 years in the wake of the success of this film, with people bringing her stories, with people telling her their experience and sharing. And in a lot of ways, the evolution of this project began with some of my inspiration from Ellen and her real life story. In my initial research of this film and the narrative we were sculpting, I found cases of up to 5 in a synchronized possession. So up to 5 accounts of 5 people that were dealing with possession from an entity that felt related among the 5. And for me, that was exciting because I thought, okay, now I can explore all these different perspectives of how you would deal with it differently if it was your child, than I would deal with it, than she would deal with it, or he would deal with it. And so this became, to me, part of the conflict of the movie is if our children are possessed by the same entity and you think about things differently than I do, how do we work together to kind of free these kids of this being? When Ellen Burstyn walks on set, I'm in the presence of Hollywood royalty. So I get goosebumps. I get excited about what we're going to create together. Very quickly, she makes you comfortable, she cracks a joke, and all of a sudden you're just there with a collaborator. You're there with a sparring partner. You invite Leslie Odom Jr., you invite Jennifer Nettles and Norbert Leo Butz and Ann Dowd, and we're in the room talking through who these characters are and what this world is and where are we right now. And so many of those things that start to be fleshed out when you've put this ensemble together and you start blocking out the reality and logistics of your movie. So Leslie plays the character Victor Fielding, and early in the film, we see that Victor loses his wife, his pregnant wife, and then we fast forward 13 years later, and we pick up the story of Victor and his daughter Angela. And at this point, Angela is everything to Victor. Victor lives a very isolated life. He doesn't connect too great to his community, to his neighbors. He's put church and faith behind him, and he puts everything he has into the protective relationship and world of he and his daughter. And that's where our story steps in, is challenging that and challenging living. One of the things I love about the original Exorcist is it starts in this exotic locale and in these curious characters. It's very ambiguous as to what's going on, but it's captivating, it's rhythmic, it's mysterious. And then it steps away from that introduction and into a relatable, real-life, recognizable, modern-day world. And that was one of the ingredients in the original film that I thought would be smart to take to our film, of show us a place that's not our everyday world, but show how that affects some characters, and then let's step, in our case, we step forward in time several years, and then find our relatable modern-day world. In my mind, a Halloween movie is a movie that jumps up and stabs you. An Exorcist movie creeps under your skin and gets you. So it's a very different, a demonic possession movie is a very different subgenre of horror than a slasher movie. We're not the boogeyman, we're not afraid of the dark. This is a movie about real life drama that escalates to a point of absolute mind-blowing horror. I think this movie is asking a lot about belief. It's asking a lot about placebos, the power of suggestion, about faith, where you come from and what you're willing to believe if you think that that's the step toward healing. And so every character, no matter how devout they have, are within the story here, are challenged by their faith, challenged by their belief. And then ultimately, that's a quality also that can unite.
Their performance is incredible. And David spent countless hours and, interviewed, taped so many different girls, and these were the perfect ones. And their performance together is beyond what anyone could imagine. It was incredible. He's a fantastic actor. And he brought his character and his performance between he and Ellen and the rest of the cast was remarkable. I think it's a relationship between these two girls and the ending, which no one will expect. I think that relationship between a father and a daughter, the relationship between a mother, a father, and another daughter, and the jeopardy that they all go through, and also the relationships that the adults have with each other. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with him. He really is, the best director I've worked with. He's insightful, he's collaborative, and his way with the actors and how the actors give him 110%, and the crew also. There's not a person on this set that wouldn't do anything for him.
The idea of playing a character that I created 50 years ago, I thought, she's had 50 years of living. Who has she become? What are the experiences that happened to her those 50 years? And how does that affect the person she is now? And that started to interest me creatively. And I realized that, we are in any moment of time, the sum total of everything that's happened to us and how we've reacted to it, responded to it, how it's become part of our character. And I thought that was an interesting, creative challenge to explore. Working with Leslie and working with David, that they're both good men to begin with and fine artists dedicated to what they're doing. And for me, there's no richer experience in my life than being creative and working with someone who's also creative, and we're in this thing together. And, I said to Leslie that I said, I like working. Oh, I said, I like playing with you. He said, I like playing with you too. I said, yeah, we're good playmates. That's what it feels like, We had fun doing this very difficult material. It's a terrifying thought that you can be taken over by a force that's inside. That's the most, it's one thing to be taken over by somebody coming in the room and tying you up or kidnapping you or threatening you. But the idea of an inner force being able to get possession of you and you can't control it, I don't think there's anything more terrifying. So for a horror film, it's a very good premise. There are rituals for it in every religion, in every country, in every culture. And they're all different because they all have different belief systems. They have different gods, they have different demons. But there are certain similarities. And the exorcisms work, strangely enough. It's fun for people who like horror films. People who like to get scared, and then after the scary scene's over to, and laugh, and, you know, that was really scary. That release that people feel after they've been really scared, but it's not for real. That's what horror films seem to be for. And I think they will get their money's worth with this one. I do think it'll be scary as hell, literally. And people who like to be scared ought to go see this movie.
One of the things that's very unique about David, and this is true of the more experienced filmmakers that we work with, but it's especially true of David, is that he's so confident that he's not defensive. And he's really, every director says, I'm open to taking the best idea, but almost none of them actually do. And David is great at really listening to different people, different points of view, and taking whatever idea he thinks will make the movie best. I think the trick of reimagining iconic movies like Halloween or The Exorcist is taking some stuff from the original movie and then inventing new things. Obviously, you can't just redo the, well, you could just redo the movie, but not a lot of people would want to see that. So having Ellen in the movie is really an amazing way to connect this movie to the first movie, although obviously time has gone by and she's much older and she plays herself X amount of years later. But I think it really ties the DNA of this movie to the first movie, which I think for me and for the fans is very satisfying. I remember the first time I saw The Exorcist. I actually saw it, sadly, on TV. I wasn't quite old enough to go to the theater when it came out. But it did to me what it did to so many people. It scared me to death, and it continued to scare me long after I had seen the film. Demons and exorcisms exist throughout all religions and cultures around the world, dating back many, many thousands of years. Our world has felt so divided for so many years that it's a relief to see different groups work together to fight a greater evil. I think the moments that were most terrifying for me were some of the lines from the girls. God played a trick on you. Lydia's delivery of that line gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. I've sat in a theater a few times the trailer has played, and the reaction is amazing.
We rapped with Miss Ellen Burstyn earlier tonight. And what a dream this has been. What an exciting, once in a lifetime. I feel like I won a fan contest, you know? I'm one of the biggest Exorcist fans that you will meet. When I heard that David was making this movie, I sent my agent an email. Must have been last year, maybe even the year before. End of the year, I sent them an email like, just so you know, this is a dream project. FYI, just do with that what you will. And I don't know, 7 or 8 months later, I got a call to join David on this adventure. It's weird to talk about a blessing on a project like The Exorcist, but she really blessed the project. And she grounded and blessed me as a scene partner. You know, we already had the bar of her work, the high bar of her work, the high mark of her work and Linda's work and that original team that they gave us. You know, we're trying to be in the world. I know we're making our own thing here, but we are, of course, trying to honor this thing that inspired us so. I just remember being a teenager when I first saw The Exorcist and being so like shaken by Ellen's work because it's disarming in its humanity and its honesty. So I was a little nervous, as you can imagine, to, you know, come here and work with her, but from the first minutes of being with her, she gave me this huge hug. I mean, you know, a nice long, special hug, like a welcoming hug. And then we dug right in. At the end of the day, I want to get wrapped up in a story. I want to believe it. It was the specificity of those relationships. It was the the truth and humanity and desperation that they brought to it, you know, those relatable emotions, they made me believe it. They made me feel it. And so that's what we're trying to do.
I think that's the thing, is probably like Catherine makes Angela talk to people, and then Angela's more like, okay, let's like chill out for a second, please.
I think the dynamic is a lot like ours, but
Yeah.
flopped because I'm more the introvert and she's more the
I'm more the
extrovert.
extrovert.
So what can I say? But it kind of is that dynamic, I feel like,
Definitely.
just opposite.
Yeah.
When you're doing your character research and you're getting into the role, not only do you have to discover who Catherine is, right? So that's one. You gotta know who Catherine is. You gotta know who Demon Catherine is, and then you gotta know everything in between. Because obviously there's stages. We have like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, like we have all these stages. And so I kind of wanted to create, so you could clearly see where these stages were, but also they blend together very well in a very true way to, I guess, how it would when you're possessed. So it was like 2 main characters to build, but also all these different characters and variations in between, which is something that was so cool to do. And my YouTube search history is like weird possession videos, but you know, I have an excuse.
I think that's what David is also great with, is he
Yeah.
shows us like what he's thinking for the stages and the levels. Like I think he told me once, like percentages of how much we're crazy or something like that. And that helps us sort of visualize the idea that we're going for, because some scenes he'll have me do them a stoic way, like just like no emotion. Then some scenes he'll have me do them as sweet Angela. And then some scenes he'll have me do them super aggressive. And so I think that sort of shows how fluid it is. I think the makeup definitely helps because you have sort of a place to go to. But I think for the like 50% demon, I think it's more of a, that's the fun part, is finding how you can do that without like makeup to work. Like I have this big bulge on the side of my head. So sometimes in a scene, I'll like turn like that so like the light can catch it and everything, right? But when I don't have it, it's more fun to see the different ways you can show that aggression or that difference in mentality from regular Angela to demon Angela. I think that's the fun and challenging part, is finding those differences, you know?
I'm so excited for, I guess, the viewers to see all the nods and all the different references in there, because a lot of them aren't just put in plain sight. A lot of them you gotta
look
keep
for.
your eye out for or listen closely. So I think it's really well done, how it's something of its own, but is also paying lots of respect to the original.
Well, I am a huge Hamilton nerd. Huge. Loved it so much. And so I was so excited to meet him just because of everything he's done in the past as well, though, in acting as well. But it's really cool to see, like, he's the type of person to really get into his character. Like, there was, in, like you said, the emergency room scenes, it's Victor being reunited with his only family, basically. And so what he did on that day is, instead of, that was one of the first few scenes that we had filmed together, actually, but on that day, since he's being reunited with Angela, he did not want to look at me. Like, wherever we were sitting, he didn't want to see me, he didn't want to interact with me, because he wanted that fresh feeling of not having seen me, having gotten his daughter back, you know? And so I really respect people who take their character seriously, because that just makes the film better in general.
I hope it does have that impact that the original had. And I also hope that people walk out of it thinking like, wow, they really paid respect to the original. They did its respects and shooken up. You know, when you just walk out of the theater and you like
shaking and all that.
Yeah. I think those are kind of, I think, the main things I'm hoping people can feel when they're watching that.